Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Today we're gonna, so Evgeny and myself, we're gonna introduce you to Wormhole. I'm not sure if you already have a good idea about what Wormhole does and what it is, but we'll try our best. We decided to be two because we felt it was a bit more interactive. So if you have any question, don't hesitate. You can just raise your hand and we can just take it as a casual conversation. So yeah, let's do it. My name is Pauline. I'm the DevRel at Wormhole. Maybe you want to introduce yourself, yeah?
Hi guys, I'm Evgeny. I'm also a DevRel at Wormhole.
Yeah, so this is the duo basically. There's only the two of us. So here are the workshop goals for today. So basically we thought that it was maybe it make a bit more sense if we take 4 specific Wormhole products. I'll walk you through the high-level concepts, somehow technical, and then through live use cases, we got a bit of an product tech dive. So it's not going to be too technical, but we're going to try to do that. And if you have any question after each product, maybe we can take it every time. Yep. Yeah, so before we go through a quick intro, because interoperability doesn't always speak to everyone. You could be a Web3 dev like I was before. I worked for L2 protocol, so interop was a bit of a new thing to me, even though I knew what it was. But I think it's quite important just to remind everyone what interop is. So basically, blockchain ecosystem are pretty isolated in terms of for many reasons, but what interoperability solution like Wormhole, and we are not the only one out there, we're trying to do is to make data communicate across multiple chains. Basically, that's what the kind of solution we offer. And yeah, just so you know, so this is from Wormhole Scan. Wormhole Scan is our on scan. So it's a really good tool if you want to, not just to look at when you use Wormhole, but in general, for any sort of cross-chain activity, you can have it's very extensive tool. You can check a lot of things. But yeah, here it is. So interop is not a small, the market share is very high. We cannot deny that anymore. So here we just passed the 50 billion total volume, which is Wormhole is actually the first protocol, interop protocol, to pass 50 billion. It facilitates 50 billion. That's what I mean. The total amount of messages you can see it on the left corner there. And and this is to talk about what kind of problem we are trying to solve, mostly about fragmentation liquidity. And the fact that, every single ecosystem has to be able to communicate with each other. So you can see how from Ethereum, everything gets fragmented into different protocols. Do you want to add anything, or are you good?
I'm good. Okay. One thing which is super interesting to see is that that we have so many different chains where the fragmentation goes. So if you look at the Ethereum chart, we have 54% during that month, which goes to just on this slide, you can see about 10 different chains. So the fragmentation is really obvious that it's not just going between 2 chains but the amount of different chain communication is massive, and it rises with every month. Every new L2, every additional chain brings even more fragmentation, which obviously makes things more complicated for the users and also for the developers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any L2, any Cosmos chain, any substrate chain. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, so basically just this is what we talk about with fragmentation. We've all been there. You have a USDC on, I can't remember how many protocol at the moment, but yeah, that's an issue, right? If you think about how everything is so fragmented. So we are both developer, and we think the most important is to understand how you build application with Wormhole. Let's start. Okay, so 4 products. One is connect. So connect, we're going to go through each one of them. But connect basically is almost a one-liner in the code, but it's basically a React component that you add into your application, and it's a widget. Then is the entity native token transfer. This one is a open framework for making any token natively multi-chain. So this one is a big part of our product stack at the moment. Then we have queries. So we will also explain what it does. And just one thing, composable intent is not out yet. But we thought it was just so cool that we decided to talk about it anyway. But yeah, basically it is really like I guess it's an alpha at this point, because it will be out by the end of the month, I think. So, but we thought it was a very interesting concept to share. So let's get started. Okay, entity native token transfer. Sorry, I have my notes. Sorry, just a second. So it's a one thing that's important to understand with entity is that entity is not another token standard. It is an open framework, so it's permissionless, and basically what it does is extremely configurable. So we can sorry, I can maybe press myself. Yeah. So you have many use cases for entity. You will have, for instance, any sort of token transfer, any borrow-lend protocol, Oracle governance, swap. So it is very important to understand that it's open source, so everyone can use it. And then when I mean it's, so basically what it does, it allows you to take any token multi-chain. That's the core idea. And what is very important when we mean it's flexible, configurable, and the custom governance is the idea that it preserves certain characteristics. So let's take an example. If you have designed a token, like a governance token, or for instance, a restaking token, what's very important for you is to remain ownership and to keep all the characteristics that make that token that you have designed in a certain way. And you don't want to go into a sort of framework or a different token standard that will basically change the way you design your token. So one thing that Entity does extremely well is that it's highly flexible and it's highly customizable. It's also very composable. It's very composable, so that means you can pretty much use it with any sort of DeFi protocol. So think of it as a tool that you use based on your need and based on your token. Like whichever token you have designed, you will be able to use Entity with it. So one way to also, and we're going to go a bit deeper with it, but there are two main, these are the most common deployment model, right? So one is, for new token, is the burn and mint mechanism. So this one, basically, you burn your token on the source chain, and you mint it on the destination chain, right? That's like the purest multi-chain token you can possibly have. But this is okay if it's a new token, right? So what about token? They are already existing out there. So when you already have a token that you already have, that is already existing, the best way to use Entity is actually for a hub and spoke. Hub and spoke is, so it basically locks the token, and when it transfers out to the destination chain and it redeploy the token, then you mint a new token. That's kind of one way to look at it. Yeah. And yeah, just before Evgeny dive a bit deeper in some product out there. So it's some of the benefits that we have is configurable parameter. This is what I said before. So basically, it's very you can also so it's extremely secure. Okay, so that's also another thing that we need to understand. And then you can, for instance, configure the inbound and outbound rate limit. You can configure. You remain full control over deployment. That's another thing that's important. and then it preserves the token ownership, what I've explained just before. So yeah, it's just not a token standard. It's really much more like a tool to use as a framework. Yeah. Yeah, I can also take that. So basically, the way you start with entity is that you need to have deployed your tokens. So there is 2 tokens to deploy. Let's say you want to send from, I don't know, Arbitrum to Solana or the other way around. So it works in any sorts of way. You can have the EVM to EVM or Solana, SUI, whatever. Then you choose your deployment model. So either you have a burn and mint mechanism or you get a hub and spoke. And then you use, well, we have a CLI. So the CLI basically is a 5-minute, literally, deployment with a CLI. It's extremely simple. And when I tell you 5 minutes, I really mean it, because we really try to focus on the best DevX possible and to make it as easy for developer to actually use it. And we really try to remove any sorts of friction there. And then you plug in the Connect widget, which I will explain a bit later. And that's basically it. Then you get a token multichain, like natively multichain.
All right. Now I'm going to talk about a bit more, like, for example, how entity works and what it's used for. One of the examples that I want to start with is actually the Lido deployment. So one cool thing about the Lido deployment is that since the native token transfer framework is so modular, what they wanted to do is to add an extra layer of security to the general verification. So instead of just having Wormhole as a verification layer for any transaction which goes from Ethereum to the BNB chain, what they did is they added XLR as another general message passing verification layer on top. So since entity is, we mentioned it like a lot, so modular, you can use any kind of verification mechanism that you want. So you don't even need to use Wormhole as a verification if you don't want to, which like gives you way more flexibility and no lock-in at all. So even if, let's say, Wormhole would stop working, you would still not need to move away to a different standard, because you could just use any kind of other verification. Like in this example, they're using both, so they will have 2 out of 2 verification for any transaction. But as I said, they could just use XLR or any other general message platform that they would like to, which is pretty cool. Another example is Sky, which is which was called MakerDAO before, which is also using the entity framework to go from EVM chains to Solana very soon for the new USDS token. This is the architecture. I don't want to dive too deep into it, but like the interesting part is that you have 2 main contracts that are important to understand. This is the entity manager and the transceiver. The transceiver takes care of verification. So as I mentioned before, the modular verification goes through any kind of transceiver. So for the previous ladder example, like the team deployed 2 different transceivers. They had the Wormhole transceiver for Wormhole verification and the XLayer transceiver for another layer of verification. And the second contract, which is important to understand, is the entity manager. The entity manager takes care of rate limits, understanding which token are cross-registered with each other. So not any token could just be transferred from one chain to the other chain, but during the deployment is when you configure that exactly this is your token and you only want to transfer it from chain A to chain B, from source chain to destination chain, if this is the exact token that should be transferred. So it just adds another layer of security. And the rest, the off-chain component is not necessarily needed, depends on how you design the verification method. So if it goes through the Wormhole transceiver, then it uses our Guardian network, the Wormhole Guardian network, to like verify messages and then take care of the relaying to the destination chain. But like, as I said already multiple times, is that the off-chain component could be different depending on the transceiver that you use. And this is the 3 main steps that are needed with the CLI. So you don't need to use the CLI at all. You can just go ahead and deploy contracts manually. Everything is open source, permissionless. But we designed, like Pauline said before, this entity CLI, which just has like 3 main commands to get started. You create a new entity, projects, you initialize if you want to use testnet or mainnet, and then the main command is to execute all the details to add to the configuration. For example, it's called the add chain command, and then, like in this example, for like you would specify Sequoia and Arbitrum Sequoia as two of the testnets that you want to use. You specify the mode, which would be, for example, the burning mechanism. So Pauline described before, it could be burn and mint or hop and spoke, but it could be any other as well. Since it's an open framework, you're not limited to just these two standards. It's just the two that we see the most used by integrators so far. That's why we just decided to speak about it today. Then you specify the token address, which need to which is important for the entity manager that I mentioned before, and that's it. So after like these three main steps, you basically have most of the configuration already. Afterwards, you can optionally like add rate limits, like the inbound and outbound rate limits, which are like just another layer of security, which we have like on protocol level, and then you push everything on chain and you're done. So like we performed this multiple times. We have YouTube videos, for example, that go 30 minutes, and we go from token deployment to done with entity deployment, all in pretty fast paced. Obviously, after you deploy your token, like token design is up to you. You can take any ERC20 or SPL token if you want to go to Solana, but these are just the 3 steps after you already have 2 tokens or like 2, 3, 4 tokens on the chains that you want to like later transfer from and to.
Yeah, and just one thing, I think just to bounce back on this, so all contracts are upgradable, right? So that's also why you have full contract, full control over the deployment. So yeah, we spoke about those 2 deployment model, but as you said, like it's really up to you. Like we are not binding you to do anything. It's whatever up to the developer and to the team. So we try to adapt the most we can. We cannot, there's not one size fits all. So we kind of ended up designing this in what we hope is the easiest for developer. Yep. Okay, Connect. So Connect, we kind of like gonna slide through it because it's also very easy. So we don't mean to make everything sound so easy when you do stuff multi-chain with Wormhole, but honestly, this is a one-liner. So it's a widget. We can show you the UI, and basically is the easiest way for front end. If you don't have a front end, and you can just use the widget Connect from Wormhole. So. Yeah. So it's basically the perfect solution for a straightforward token, right? So gasless, the Connect transfer only requires gas fee on the source chain. So this is quite important also to remember. So the relayer drops user off with native gas token on the destination for instant transaction. So 3 lines. So you have a React component that you add in basically in your front end, and then you have a config file. We decided to just not talk too much about the config file. I mean, you will a little bit, but basically you can configure the chain. You can configure also if you have a custom token, so you don't have to use a token that is already pre-registered. You can do whatever you want, but this is very important, especially if you don't want to be bothered by using any UI. Yeah, can we? So basically, this one, we took it from PancakeSwap. This is Wormhole Connect widget. So that's the way it looks. We have a tool that is called Connect and Style. It's not here, but it's basically it's just like a UI where you can paste your config file, and then it will tell you if it is valid or not, right? And it helps you whether you haven't configured the network, the chain, the token, or whatever, you have made a mistake. And also for anyone or any team who doesn't want to be bothered by doing any sort of styling or UI and so on, you can just it's very interactive, and you can just change on the Connect and Style, and it will give you the CSS code to paste in your application. So again, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for the developer, and so they can ship as fast as possible. Yeah,
just one thing to add, just to stress that all this is just 3 lines of code. With 3 lines of code, you get the full UI, where you can transfer assets. You have wallet adapter support, so you don't need to manually have like implement the wallet adapter, which you would need for a regular UI. You just can connect your EVM or Solana or Sui or you name it wallet, and out of the box, you could start like with this UI. You don't have to, you can configure it, but just wanted to stress that it's so easy and you could go ahead and transfer tokens immediately.
Yeah. And even if you have a custom token, you can also do it. Like there is a way to do that. Yep, you can.
Yeah, this is the 3 lines that I was talking about. So you import a node module, 3 lines of code, and you're basically done with like the very basic stuff. Obviously, you can configure as much as you want. You can configure which chains you want to support. If you only want to support 2 chains, any chains, which chain should be like the one where the user would start from. So if, let's say, a user opens the UI and you want the user to directly have a specific token and which only should go between BNB and Arbitrum, then you can configure it and like have way more configuration. But the important part is that like with as minimum as 3 to 4 lines of code is when you can get started and have additional functionality later on then afterwards.
Yeah, and just before, also, what we see the most that people integrator use is the combo between entity and connect. So that is like the magic combo kind of, because you can straight away have a UI and then in the back you use entity with the CLI and you pretty much sort it very, very quickly. So it kind of takes you up to speed in like I would say in a day, if you know how to deploy token at least. So yeah, it's very efficient. Yes, queries. So queries is one of our products, and it can. So you see, it's written, but I can read. It's efficient. It's inexpensive. It's on-demand cross-chain data retrieval and attestation. So basically, what it does is that it retrieves all the data that is like cross-chain. So it's different than an Oracle, but we're gonna look into it soon. Yeah, so 84% gas cost reduction and the response time is under 1 second. So it's very fast. Yep. So were you supposed to take that? No? Okay. Yes, so one thing, no, I think you can take that and I will talk about
yeah, sure. Just a few points why queries are interesting. So we have cheaper gas fees and like rapid requests. So the whole idea is that we want to be able to have on-demand decentralized RPC results. So instead of for regular RPCs, you would have on-chain data which gets queried off-chain. With queries, you can have like a decentralized, attested, and secure way to query on-chain data on-chain as well. So that's the whole idea, which brings a lot of benefits, like, as I said, cheaper gas fees, simplified cross-chain deployment, less like necessity to trust centralized RPC services. Yeah.
Yeah, so who uses queries? So among the people that use query, we have Infinix. We have also some on Solana, you will mention it, but one that is quite interesting is Wormhole. So OneCoin, basically, it's the reason why they use Wormhole is usually the ID is authenticated on Ethereum, and basically now it allows through queries for any Solana-based protocol to be able to retrieve those authentication that happen on Ethereum. So that's one of the use case, for instance, for Wormhole.
And the second one is Giro. Giro is like they also have a staking product called Giro Sol. And what they do is they deployed the Giro Sol token to Arbitrum. Giro Sol is like natively on Solana. And they use queries in order to query the rate. So like for a staking product, they need to have native stake on the main chain, which is in this case Solana. So if they deployed another variation of Giro Sol to Arbitrum, they could use queries in order to just, in a decentralized way, query for the staking pool rate in order to note how much of native Sol they would need to have staked on Solana. And the other thing, which is pretty cool, is that they can use it as a rate provider for things like balancer. So let's say you have an L2, and on this L2 you need to know the rate conversion between an LST and the native token. For that, something like queries can be used in order to have a decentralized way to query like pool rates, for example. that is used in this example for Jito.
Yeah, so this is basically what we're about to launch. So yeah, please remember this is not out yet. Composable intent. So it's a cross-chain transfer protocol that is designed to enable faster than finality transfer across the Wormhole ecosystem. So basically what it does, it allows solvers. So solvers are the same as market maker. And it allows solver to facilitate cross-chain transfer. So by fronting asset on the destination chain and assuming the finality risk of the originating source chain abstraction. So it's a lot of words, sorry. But that's basically what it did. Like, I think if you read it, it's an easier way. We go through it. But just before we start, I just want to remind everyone what intents are. So intents refer to a transaction where a user simply states the intent, okay? So a solver, again, like we call that solver, but it's also the same as market maker, facilitates this intent and abstract away everything involved. That's basically what they do. Yeah. So this is the liquidity layer. So we will have the same as we mentioned before. It's a hub and spoke architecture, and there will be no rebalancing required. So everything is solving basically on the hub chain. That's also quite important to remember. 50 to 25-second transaction, again, because you don't wait for final, like you're not waiting, everything happened there. And it facilitated by USDC and Wormhole CCTP. This is the intention there is also to be used with entity in the, but first we will start with USDC and Wormhole CCTP. Yeah, you can go ahead. I mean, that's the idea. But
right. So this graphic is basically the idea is to have, again, a chain abstracted way of doing transfers between chain and a sub finality latency. So the goal is to have any kind of transfers between any chains without the need to wait for settlement time. So usually, if we use something like NTT, the native token transfer framework that we talked before, is the thing is that we need to wait for settlement to like be sure that no reorgs could happen. On Ethereum, for example, it could be up to 15 minutes to wait, and for some things, it's just not applicable to wait up until 15 minutes for a transfer. So the idea about composable intents, or like in general maybe intent protocols, is to have sub-finality times to like maybe 25 to 35 seconds for a transfer.
Yeah, so the practical use cases basically is a 10-second cross-chain swaps. That is the very, like, that's really cool, actually. We accept liquidity from everywhere. So that's another thing. That's why you don't need the whole rebalancing as well. It's like you don't need to have different liquidity it is the case at the moment. And then, yeah, there's the chain abstraction part that it's very important to take into consideration in the architecture.
So this is an example of how it could be used in the future. Since, I mean, it's going to launch very soon, and the Portal Bridge is the first protocol that already uses it today. But we are still working on finalizing the documentation to then publicly make it available for anyone to use. And so the whole idea about not regular intents, but our composable intents product is that you not only have sub-finality transfer possibilities, but also you can have a like custom action on top of it. So you could do, like in this example, you would see on a regular basis, you could do swap and stake. And with composable intents, you could do a transfer between two chains, a swap on the destination chain, and a custom action like depositing into any kind of liquidity pool, for example, all in one step. So the idea is to like make it as composable as possible so users can build on top of it and make it even easier to create custom use cases with sub-finality times, as I said. So let's say in 30 seconds, a user could go from any chain like SUI to Arbitrum, from USDC to a deposited liquidity pool, to deposit into a liquidity pool, let's say in USDC, in 30 seconds. Just as an example, any kind of composable action that you can think of will be possible very soon with that. just with one click.
Yeah, and also like the idea is that it completely abstracts all the complexity of going cross-chain. And I think that has been the ongoing topic about, how bridge are very hard to use, and it's very hard for newcomers to understand what to do. And like this is basically in one click, you can, like, everything can happen all at once. So each protocol or each app or whichever the developer, whatever your intention and your goals are, you can really, again, we always keep in mind that everything is modular. You can stack things on top of each other. You don't have to use all the feature. It's the same with entity. You don't have to use all the entity feature. You can just use certain things. And it's the same here. It's the same idea, right? So we're trying to make sure that the DevX is good, but also it's a big addition for any sort of good UX for application. Right. Thank you. We are back. We
have still like 12 more minutes for questions. So if you guys have questions, please
yes,
fire away.
If you have any question. Yes.
So at what point you said the relayer actually kind of acts as a paymaster for the destination chain, so you don't have to pay gas on the destination chain. Like, how does that work? Do you partner with a destination chain, and they provide liquidity to like sponsor the transaction fees, or?
You mean the connect? No. What do you mean?
You're talking about the, like, in general, how the gas drop-off works, I think?
Yeah.
I think so. In the connect.
Yeah. Connect. Yeah. Sorry, I should have specified the product.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So at the moment, the gas gets deducted from the amount on the source chain. So let's say you're sending 10 USDC and you want 10 USDC from Arbitrum to Solana. The user doesn't have any SOL. Then instead of receiving 10 USDC, the user will receive 9 and the dedicated amount in SOL on Solana. What's going to happen soon? We're going to launch the new version of our token bridge, I think this week or next week, where it's not deducted from this amount, but you can actually specify that it's that your native gas amount is reduced. So if you don't want the user to receive less of the tokens, let's say you still want the user to receive 10 USDC on the destination chain, you can just send more Ethereum gas or like more of the native token to then receive that in the native gas on the destination chain. And this is launching, I think, this or next week, very soon.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Anyone? Don't be shy. Yes, I can give him this.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to jump off on the previous question. So some products, don't want to name them, they tend to make you overpay the gas. So do you have a mechanism to send back like the funds? So you pay the gas with the funds sent, but there's a bit, do you send it back, or what happened to that extra? Yes, so yeah, exactly.
How could
So do you have a mechanism basically to send back the extra gas that's not going to be used to pay on the destination chain? Do you have a mechanism to send it back to the user?
So do you specify yourself how much gas you want to receive on the destination chain?
No, not. So I'm not talking about receiving gas on the destination chain. So some providers, they make you pay gas for the destination chain, but on your source token, basically. That's what happens. And for some providers, you tend to overpay that gas. So do you have some way to circumvent that? Do you have a better estimation for the gas on the destination chain? Do you do you reimburse the remaining funds that were not used for the gas? Do you have something like that in place?
So not at the moment, as far as I know. As far as I know, like the entire amount gets just transferred to the destination chain. So if you specify you want from 10 USDC 0.1 SOL, then we estimate the amount, and then you get the amount in USDC plus the estimation as possible, as close as possible. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for the question. Yes. Thank you.
I want to ask about question about the composable intents. Like you mentioned that the solver in that, and how can we become a solver to process a message? Is it a private mempool or the public mempool?
We have a. Sorry. Yeah. So the auctioneer program is open source and it's permissionless. So on the hub chain, an auction is created and anyone can be a solver. So anyone can bid on getting the fee that the user pays. So it's 4 bips at the moment, which is like the maximum amount that the user would need to pay to get his transaction, like the funds on the destination chain, and anyone can bid on that auction to then, let's say, have pay get less fees. So instead of like 4 basis points, you're saying, okay, I'll do it for 3.5 or whatever, and then you can participate in the auctioneer program like as you want. So anyone can do it, and then you just have the user gets the asset as a collateral first. So you need to provide that asset, and then it's up to you to then execute the transaction to like fulfill the settlement. So it's public. It's an auctioneer program on the hub chain, which at the moment probably will be Solana.
Oh, probably on Solana.
Does that make sense? Or
That
should
makes
I?
sense.
Okay.
It makes sense. Is it open to any other solver or other market maker, or
Yeah,
or is it
anyone.
only Wormhole now? Oh, it's open.
Yeah, anyone can participate in the auctioneer program. So you just need to provide the collateral, which is going to be then used for the user to like. The collateral basically needs to be the token that the user wants to have on the destination chain. So if you provide that and you say that you're gonna like the user needs to pay less instead of the 4 basis points, or if you're the first one, then the 4 basis points, then it's done. Then the user gets the token. You provide like the amount that the user needs to pay, and then anyone can then trigger the execution of this in the next step. We have, I think, 5 to 6 slots for the auctioneer program. So if someone could underbid you, right? Yeah. So it's all permissionless.
Permissions. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
For the composable intents, do you have the ability to combine the transfer of the token with just a generic message? Is that what it means when it's
Yes.
composable?
Yes. Any arbitrary message call can be combined with the transfer of a token from chain A to chain B.
And also, what guarantees do you have that the actual execution will happen? Like, what happens if like no one bids on the auction to relay the message, or if they don't actually compose the message with your transfer or something like that?
Right. So if nobody bids,
That's a good question.
then I guess that's the risk that you have, that no solver wants to take your message. So this is the risk that comes along with it. Yeah.
And are there guarantees that they'll relay the message along with the transfer?
They need to do it first. So in order to be able to participate in the auctioneer program, the solver needs to provide the collateral for it. So basically the solver says, hey, I want to take, I want to get the 4 basis points. So here's the asset that the user wants to have, and this is the message that should be relayed. And so if this doesn't happen, then the collateral gets back to the user. So there is no guarantee, since it's permissionless, that it gets 100% executed, I guess. Yeah. But then you won't lose anything because you get back the so the collateral, you will get back the collateral amount, right? So you don't have a guarantee, but at least you get the collateral from the solver that they would instead should have paid then. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kind of?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It's still work in progress. So we finalized with like finishing the documentation.
This is the first time we presented,
Yeah.
so we are like getting better at it every day. But also one thing we didn't talk about because we thought it was easier to be product based and also to give like real example, but actually the whole Wormhole tools, everything is really based on this core messaging primitive that, like basically Wormhole is general message passing protocol. So yeah, we didn't mention that because it's a bit more abstract in a bit like we think entity is very interesting to use. But yeah, in terms of like if you need to understand by more how the whole messaging protocol works, we can definitely send you some link and so on.
Any more questions?
Any more questions? Yeah. Yeah, I can give you mine.
So yeah, just one general question. What's the best way to integrate you guys, but from a backend perspective? Not the Connect product, but if I want, I have a backend service, I want to integrate Wormhole. How do I go about it?
Yeah.
What do you want to use it for? So this is just 4 products. We have even more. So it depends, I guess. You don't want
for bridging, for instance, or cross-chain swaps.
Okay, so you want to enable the user to transfer tokens from source chain to destination. We have a TypeScript SDK. So the easiest way is just to use the TypeScript SDK where you can specify which chains you want to support, which tokens, if you want to have the gas drop off as well. So it's not only Connect is built on top of the TypeScript SDK. So the easiest is probably the TypeScript SDK if your backend is in TypeScript. But we also have a Solidity SDK, for example. But I think this is the easiest, I would say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But yeah, again, it's always based on your need. I don't have to do that. Yeah. So in general, like when people want to integrate with us, the best is that they come up with what do you actually want to do? Because sometimes it's very hard for, especially if you're not yet multi-chain, a lot of integrators don't really know what's the way to go and so on. So I think it's a good way is just to come up and say, oh, that's my intention. That these are what we are trying to do. What do you advise? You know, because yeah, as we said, like you really have to think of Wormhole as a sort of like different tooling, like and a lot of modular stuff that you can stack on top of your solution, and so sometimes maybe 2 products will fit, maybe only 1, maybe 3. Like it's so it's one good way is always to get in touch with us. So you can get in touch with both of us.
Yeah, that's Telegram and Twitter from both of us. Please.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah, for sure. You can ping us, no problem. Yeah, no more. Hey.
Thank you.
Yeah.